Have you ever felt that sting, the kind that doesn't leave a bruise on the skin but a crack inside the chest? Disrespect has a way of cutting deeper than any blade. A laugh in your face, a betrayal you never saw coming, a smug glance that says you are small. It's almost predictable, isn't it? People thinking they can walk across you like a floor that will never rise up against their weight. They expect a reaction. They count on it. Anger, shouting, the kind of storm that makes them feel powerful just for provoking it. But here's the twist. The real strike is not in the noise. It's in the silence, the quiet you hold like steel in your chest. That cold, unshaken calm they never prepared for. It unsettles them more than any words ever could. They replay the moment in their heads and find nothing, only the hollow echo of their own disrespect staring back at them. So, let me ask you, what happens when your silence becomes the mirror they cannot escape? Stay with me and we'll step into that truth together. As we step into the first chapter, I want you to imagine a weapon unlike any other. Not a sword that clangs against armor, not an arrow that whistles through the air, but something quieter, slower, and far more devastating. Silence. A blade so sharp and poisonous that it cuts deeper than any insult, deeper than any blow. It doesn't strike in the moment. It lingers, working its way beneath the skin, into the mind, into the places where pride and arrogance once felt untouchable. Now imagine this. They mock you. They disrespect you openly. They laugh, thinking they have carved you down to nothing. They expect you to lash back, to raise your voice, to join them in the mud. But instead, you remain still. Not a word, not a single movement of weakness. And in that moment, something begins to shift. They choke, not because you struck back, but because you didn't. The quiet is heavier than the blow they expected, and suddenly they are the ones unsure, not you. This is where the power lies. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your silence is that realization embodied. It is proof that you are not mastered by another's insults, not enslaved by their disrespect. They thought they could own you by provoking you, but by giving them nothing, you take everything. You reveal their weakness while protecting your strength. Let me tell you a story. I once saw a man mocked in front of a crowd. Cruel words, sharp laughter. Everyone waited for the explosion, for him to prove his dignity with noise. But he did not. He stood there, calm as a stone in the river. The mocker grew louder, desperate for a reaction that never came. And as the minutes stretched, it was the mocker who shrank. His voice cracked. His laughter felt forced. The crowd's eyes turned not with pity toward the quiet man, but with judgment toward the fool who kept shouting. Silence had already won the fight. That is why silence is not weakness, it is discipline. Seneca said, "He who is injured ought not to return the injury, for on no account can it be right to do wrong, to shout back, to rage, to strike in anger, that is to descend into their level. To hold silence is to remain above. It is to declare without words that their disrespect cannot shake the ground beneath your feet. You are not here to trade insults. You are here to master yourself. And in mastering yourself, you master the situation. Think of it as a battle. The first round is their disrespect. The blow lands, the words sting, the laughter burns. That round belongs to them. But what they don't see is that the fight doesn't end there. When you hold your silence, the bell rings for the second round, and this time they are unprepared. They expect rage. They expect your face red with fury, your voice trembling with defense. Instead, they are met with nothing. that nothing is the heaviest strike of all. From here, the tide turns. They replay what happened in their minds. They wonder, why didn't he react? Did she not care? Did I miss something? Their arrogance starts to fold in on itself. That is the slow poison at work. You don't need to lift a finger. You don't need to explain. The silence does the speaking for you, and it speaks in a language sharper than any argument. And here's where the Stoic wisdom shines. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Your silence is not just the absence of reaction, it is the highest form of response. It shows that you have chosen calm over chaos, mastery over impulse. You refuse to hand over the reins of your mind, and in that refusal, you've already declared victory. Do not mistake me. Silence does not erase the sting of being disrespected. It hurts. It carves deep, especially when it comes from those you trusted. But that pain can be turned into something greater. Like iron forged in fire, silence takes the heat of betrayal and hardens it into strength. Every insult becomes another strike of the hammer, shaping you into someone unbreakable. Every laugh in your face becomes another spark that only strengthens your resolve. And when the forging is done, you emerge untouchable. At this stage, consider the long game. They believe disrespect is the end of the story. They think they've won because they had the last word. But silence tells them otherwise. Silence keeps the story unfinished. It hangs in the air like a shadow, reminding them that the fight is not over and that you, not they, hold the ending. They don't realize it yet, but their so-called victory was only round 1. Round 2 belongs to you, and you have already won. So the next time someone disrespects you, resist the urge to fight with noise. Let them waste their energy. Let them show their weakness. You remain quiet. You remain still. Because silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. Silence is the blade that cuts deeper than any punch. And as we move forward, remember this: silence is not only about them, it is about you. It is about turning pain into discipline, insult into fuel, and chaos into calm. For in that quiet, you prove a truth they can never take away. You are stronger than their scorn, and you have already won by refusing to play their game. As we step into this second chapter, I want you to picture the stillness of night. The world is quiet, the lights are out, and yet somewhere, someone is lying awake, unable to escape the sound that roars louder than any argument: your silence. It hammers in their head like a drum they cannot silence. They turn from side to side, searching for rest, but rest will not come. Because what they hear in the darkness is not your voice. What they hear is nothing, and that nothing is unbearable. Now imagine this weight pressing down on them, little by little. The disrespect they threw at you, the mockery, the arrogance, it seemed light to them when they tossed it your way. But in the quiet, it returns to them as a stone, heavier each night. They replay the words, the smirk, the moment they thought they had won. But instead of satisfaction, they feel a crushing weight. They begin to realize that they didn't hurt you. They only exposed themselves. And as the days pass, the truth grows clearer. They picked the wrong person. Here's where the paradox reveals itself. You don't lift a finger. You don't chase them. You don't shout or argue. You simply hold your silence, and that silence becomes their punishment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence. In your stillness, you've given the most devastating reply. You've shown that they don't control you. They wanted to drag you into a storm, but you remained the calm sea. And nothing unsettles the weak more than facing a storm inside themselves with no one else to blame. I once knew a man who betrayed a close friend in front of others. He did it with laughter, with swagger, convinced he had humiliated the other man. But the one betrayed said nothing. He didn't defend himself. He didn't retaliate. He just stood still and carried on. At first, people thought he had been defeated. But days later, it was the betrayer who couldn't stop talking about it, bringing it up again and again, as if to justify himself. The silence was too loud. It forced him to wrestle with his own conscience. And in the end, the one who stayed quiet walked away stronger, while the one who laughed was the only one chained to shame. This is what the Stoics understood. Seneca reminded us, "He who has injured you was stronger or weaker than you. If stronger, spare him. If weaker, spare yourself." In both cases, restraint is wisdom. Why? Because fury wastes your strength, while silence guards it. The crowd may not understand it in the moment, but time will always reveal who truly held control. Here's where you see the deeper truth. They wanted your reaction. That was the prize they sought. They hoped to see you rage, to beg, to demand, to reveal your heart laid bare. But you denied them that victory. You understood the game and chose not to play. You robbed them of what they craved most, proof that they had power over you. And now their own thoughts, their own conscience are eating them alive. So don't bother with shouting, don't waste your breath on pleas. "How could you do this to me?" is a cry for the weak. The real strength lies in calm. The real power is in letting them underestimate you. When you stay quiet, they think they've broken you. But the truth is, they've broken themselves. You are not destroyed, you are sharpened. You are not undone, you are refined. Their arrogance has become the rope around their own neck. Think of it like poison, slow and invisible. At first, they feel fine, victorious even. They laugh, they boast, they walk tall. But with each passing day, the poison of silence works deeper. It enters their thoughts, their dreams, their memories. Until one day, they realize the truth. They can't escape it. They can't undo it. And you, the one they tried to diminish, remain unshaken. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." They believed the insult was the end, but your reaction, or your lack of it, became the real blow. The absence of noise became the heaviest strike, and now they live with it while you walk free. At this stage, you must remind yourself of this. Staying calm is not surrender. It is victory disguised as restraint. Every second you remain still, you grow stronger. Every second you deny them your reaction, their weakness deepens. They don't even realize they are destroying themselves. But you do. You know the game, and you know that by not playing, you've already won. So let them stew in the mess they made. Let them feel the weight of their own words pressing down on them. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain. You don't need to fight. Because silence is the weapon they never prepared for, the blade they never saw coming. And here's the beauty. They will destroy themselves trying to make sense of it. They'll replay every detail, analyze every glance, search for meaning in every breath you didn't take. They'll imagine plans, plots, consequences, and in the end, the punishment is not your anger. It's their own mind turned against them. This is the quiet punishment. It's not loud, it's not violent, but it's devastating. It crushes slowly, relentlessly, without pause. And while they burn, you remain untouched. While they unravel, you rise. That is the art of silence. That is the victory of calm over chaos. So as this chapter closes, carry this truth with you. The real strength is not in shouting louder, but in mastering yourself. Your silence will always echo louder than their insult. And in that echo, they will find no peace. As we step into this chapter, picture a crowd waiting for the clash. They lean forward, hungry for conflict, eager for noise. They breathe in quarrels like oxygen, expecting fire from your lips. But when the moment arrives, you do not roar, you do not beg, you do not even explain. You give them silence, and that silence cuts deeper than any blade. Here's where the tables turn. Each time they remember the moment they disrespected you, they don't feel proud. They feel smaller, weaker, more pathetic, because silence has transformed you into something they cannot measure, a mystery. And mystery unsettles the arrogant. You are no longer predictable, no longer someone they can pin down. You've become untouchable. And that untouchable quiet, that refusal to give them the reaction they craved, that is what they now fear the most. The truth is harsh. They never respected you. They thought they could mock you and walk away smiling. But respect, as Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, is not earned through noise. It is revealed in silence. Let them laugh for now. Let them toast their false victory. In time, those shallow victories will sour into ash in their mouths. They will notice something has shifted, that you have changed, that they miscalculated, and by the time they awaken to this truth, it will already be too late. Your silence is not just killing them, it is burying them, slowly, painfully, and yet I know how it feels on your side. It hurts when those you trusted most betray you. It cuts when people you thought had your back strike instead. That sting can break lesser men, but pain itself, the Stoics taught, is not the enemy. Pain is the teacher. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men." Take that hurt. Take that insult. Do not let it make you brittle. Let it sharpen you. Let it strengthen the steel within. But guard yourself against one danger. Do not crack. Do not give them the spectacle of your collapse, because the instant they see you falter, they believe they have won, and you are not here to hand out victories. You are better than that, smarter than that. You know how the game works. You've already won simply by refusing to play. So, let them believe they have triumphed. Let them walk away smug. Because when the noise fades and the night grows quiet, they will be the ones haunted. Haunted by the memory of their cruelty. Haunted by the silence that followed. Haunted by the echo of nothingness they could not endure. And when they crawl back, because they always crawl back, seeking your attention, begging for your forgiveness, you'll already know the truth. You had won long before they realized their loss. And when that day comes, you do not need speeches. You do not need to tell them what they did. Just smile, a calm, unbroken smile, and walk away. Because your silence is the loudest thunder they will ever hear. Here's the paradox of power. The world believes strength is noise, the loudest voice, the hardest punch, the biggest scene. But that is not strength. That is desperation dressed up as courage. True power is quiet, subtle. It does not need to scream to be felt. It is like a ticking clock in a quiet room. At first, no one notices. But as time passes, the sound grows heavier, louder, until it dominates the air. That is what your silence becomes. A ticking bomb, unseen, unheard, but inevitable. Right now you are that bomb. You sit still, letting them think they've won, letting them believe they've pierced your armor. But with every second of silence, the noose tightens around their pride. They think they understand you. They think they've figured you out, but fools only see what is in front of them. They don't realize you've changed the rules. You're not playing their game anymore. You've stepped onto higher ground. And in your game, silence is the ultimate weapon. Your silence is not weakness. It is danger. the most dangerous tool you possess, because when they disrespected you, they expected noise, rage, a scene to hold against you, but you gave them nothing, and now that nothing consumes them, they are stuck in their own heads, wondering when the other shoe will fall. And it will fall, but not with fireworks, not with noise. It will fall like a whisper in the dark. They won't even see it coming until it's too late. Notice how silence unsettles people. They fidget, they squirm, they rush to fill the void with excuses, with lies, with hollow apologies. Why? Because silence is a mirror. It forces them to look inward, to face the ugliness they've tried to hide. And people hate their own reflection when it shows them what they don't want to see. That's why they try to break your calm. They can't bear the sight of their own weakness staring back at them. But you don't owe them words. You don't owe them comfort. Let them sit in that silence. Let them feel the weight of every second. Because here's the truth, they are killing themselves trying to decode you, replaying your stillness, analyzing your quiet, wondering what you're planning. They don't know if you're waiting, if you're plotting, or if you've already forgotten them. And that torment eats them alive. Meanwhile, you've already moved on. You've placed your strength in the only place it belongs, on yourself, on your growth, on what lies ahead. And that indifference, that refusal to let them anchor you to their chaos, is what drives them insane. They say revenge is best served cold, but the higher truth is that the best revenge may be none at all. Sometimes the most devastating justice is simply walking away, because people like that will always destroy themselves. They are their own worst enemy. All you have to do is step aside, and their ruin will unfold. And while they collapse under the weight of their own actions, you rise. Every insult becomes fuel. Every slight becomes fire. Every mockery becomes another stone in the fortress of your strength. You do not waste it chasing them. You turn it inward. You build. You grow. You ascend. But don't mistake silence for mercy. They don't escape the cost of what they've done. The debt is already paid. They just don't see it yet. Because every time they watch you thrive, every time they glimpse your calm, every time they realize you've risen higher without them, it will sting deeper than anything you could have shouted in anger. That is the punishment they cannot outrun. Think about it. They disrespected you, expecting you to return, demanding answers, begging for apologies. But what they never prepared for was the truth. You don't need them. And that truth breaks them. It crushes their pride into dust. Because in their twisted minds, they thought they mattered to you. But the truth, they don't. They never did. It's almost poetic. You don't have to strike. You don't have to lift a hand. You don't even have to remember them, yet your silence will haunt them for the rest of their lives. They will try to bury the memory, but ghosts do not stay buried. Your silence will rise again and again, whispering the same words. You messed up. And here's the sweetest part. You won't even be thinking about them anymore. You'll be out in the world, building, living, moving forward. They'll remain chained to the past. You'll be chasing goals, creating victories, shaping your life. They'll be stuck in the moment. They disrespected you, unable to escape. That is the beauty of silence. It demands nothing from you, yet it takes everything from them. So sit back, stand tall, let your silence speak. Because they need your reaction to feel powerful. But you need nothing from them. Nothing. And that makes you untouchable. That makes you dangerous. And that makes your silence the loudest roar they will ever hear. As we step into this chapter, imagine yourself walking down a crowded road. There are faces everywhere, voices buzzing, some full of warmth, but many filled with malice. Among them, there will always be those who try to drag you down. They disrespect you, they betray you, they whisper that you are nothing, and when the sting of those moments comes, it can cut deep, deeper than any blade. But here's the truth I have learned from scars and from silence. It is not about you. It never was. It is always about them. Now, imagine one of these people standing before you. He points, he mocks, he sneers. To those watching, he looks powerful. He looks like he has you cornered. But look closer. Behind the noise, you will see the trembling of fear. Fear that you will see through the mask. Fear that you will recognize the emptiness inside him. Fear that you will rise, and that rise will reveal his own failure. That is why he tries to smear you with mud, to drag you down to his level. Because if you are in the dirt, his weakness is less visible. He cannot stand beside someone who remains standing tall. Here's where Stoic wisdom sharpens the picture. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best way of avenging yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer." This is more than advice. It is a law of strength. They want to provoke you. They want to lure you into their game. If you descend, they have won. But if you remain calm, if you refuse to let your dignity slip, you reveal the deeper truth. You are not their equal in pettiness. You are greater because you have mastered yourself. I once worked with a man who seemed to take joy in ridicule. Every meeting was a stage for his performance. He cut into people with words, laughed at their expense, thrived on the fear he created. One day, he turned on me. His insults flew, sharp and deliberate. The room grew tense. Everyone expected me to strike back, to defend myself, to let anger take the wheel. But I said nothing. I sat still. I let his words fall into the quiet. The silence unsettled him more than any rebuttal could have. He grew louder, then weaker, then silent himself. And from that day on, his attacks lost their power. Not because I crushed him with argument, but because I refused to play. This is the essence of being untouchable. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom is not found in retaliation. Freedom is found in knowing that no insult, no betrayal, no attempt to belittle can control you unless you allow it. They may hurl stones at your name, they may spit venom in your direction, but none of that enters the fortress you build inside, and that fortress is your true strength. Picture it clearly, a fortress high on a hill. Enemies gather below, hurling rocks, raising their voices, waving their fists. But you are behind the walls, calm, composed, unbroken. Their noise cannot breach the stone. They cannot enter unless you open the gate. And control, the gate, is yours alone. That is why your composure terrifies them, because when you do not yield, you remind them of the one thing they lack: mastery of themselves. From here, the lesson deepens. They will call you arrogant. They will accuse you of being cold, distant, untouchable. And in one sense, you are untouchable, not because you have no wounds, but because you refuse to bleed for their entertainment. You are not better by nature, but by choice. You chose restraint over reaction. You chose stillness over chaos. You chose to guard your soul when they could not guard theirs. And nothing frightens the insecure more than the sight of someone who has built what they cannot build within themselves. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is the heart of the fight. Not against them, but against yourself. The true battle is whether you will give in to rage, whether you will let their insult set fire to your peace. Every time you resist, you rise higher. Every time you guard your mind, you climb further out of their reach. They cannot touch you if you refuse to hand them the keys. Think of control as a crown, not the kind made of gold, but one woven of discipline and patience. You wear it quietly. No one applauds, no one cheers. But those who try to strike you feel its weight. They wanted you to crumble. They wanted you to beg for respect. But when you remain steady, when you smile in silence, their arrogance crumbles instead. That is the crown they can never steal. And here is where the irony sharpens like a blade. They attack because they are terrified of what you might see. They disrespect because they are desperate to cover their own flaws. They betray because they cannot stand in your presence without feeling small. Their actions are confessions. Every insult says, "I am weak." Every betrayal says, "I am afraid." And the louder they shout, the clearer the confession becomes. But your silence is the verdict. It is the answer they cannot argue with. It is the reminder that no matter what they do, they cannot control you. You remain master of yourself. You remain untouchable. So let them rage. Let them betray. Let them whisper behind your back. You do not descend. You do not waste your strength on noise. You rise higher. You walk further. And in that walk, every step widens the... Have you ever wondered why the people who disrespected you cannot stop circling back in their thoughts? It is not the moment of their insult that haunts them. It is the silence that followed. They expected fire. They expected a storm. They expected you to lose yourself in noise. But you gave them nothing, and that nothing is louder than thunder. That silence becomes a shadow over their days. It follows them when they laugh with others. It creeps in when they try to fall asleep at night. It whispers in the pauses of their own conversations. Silence is a teacher they never asked for but cannot escape. Every time they see you or hear your name, the lesson returns. They never had power over you. Not then, not now, not ever. The Stoics taught us that strength is not measured by how loud you can shout or how fierce you can strike. Strength is measured by your command of yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your silence is the living proof of that line. They struck at you, but you did not surrender what was yours. You held your peace, and that peace has now become their burden. Think of it this way. Words fade quickly. Arguments dissolve in the air. But silence endures. Silence presses on them with weight they cannot shake. The memory of their disrespect collides again and again with the absence of your reply, until they can no longer tell whether the enemy is you or themselves. And in truth, it has always been themselves. But this story is not only about them, it is about you, because silence, while it haunts them, also builds you. Every time you refuse to answer disrespect with noise, you are sharpening yourself. Every time you resist the temptation to prove your worth through anger, you are reminding yourself that your worth never depended on them in the first place. That is the real victory. Not in wounding them, but in keeping your dignity untouched. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Their insult is the adversity. Your silence is the proof. You faced the sting, and you came out stronger. You did not let their weakness infect you. You stood still. You rose above. I have seen this play out time and again. A person tries to provoke, to humiliate, to tear down. They succeed for a moment in front of others, but only for a moment. The one who stays calm, who refuses to descend, always leaves a deeper mark. The one who reacts in rage always looks smaller in hindsight. The crowd eventually forgets the noise, but remembers the composure. Dignity outlives drama. So let them live with their fear. Let them drown in their doubts. Let them rehearse endless excuses in their heads. You owe them nothing. You do not need to explain what is in your heart. You do not need to open the gates of your mind to those who mocked you. Their punishment is already sealed. Every time they see you thrive, every time they realize you have moved forward without them, the wound deepens, and you never had to raise a hand. But take this lesson to heart. Silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is discipline, composure, mastery. It is the mark of one who has chosen control over chaos. While they are trapped in their own noise, you are building. While they waste themselves in doubt, you are growing. While they sit chained to the past, you are walking into the future. At this point, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what is stronger, the roar that fades or the quiet that lingers? You already know the answer. The roar is forgotten, but the quiet shapes destiny. And your destiny is not bound to the smallness of those who tried to disrespect you. Your destiny is written in your restraint, in your rise, in the silence that proves you are untouchable. Now I want to invite you to claim that silence. If these words resonate with you, mark your stand in the comments with just 2 words: stay silent. Let it be your reminder that you are not defined by their insult. You are defined by your mastery over yourself. And if you found strength here, let this be the beginning of a longer journey. Subscribe, not because you are told, but because you know that surrounding yourself with wisdom and reminders of your strength will carry you through storms. Each choice to learn, each step of reflection, each reminder of stoic calm becomes another weapon in your hand. As you step away from this message, carry this truth. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the essence of power. It unsettles the arrogant. It refines the wise. It transforms pain into discipline and insult into strength. Let others waste their breath in noise. You remain still. You remain firm. You remain untouchable. And tomorrow, when life throws you into another storm, you will not falter. You will not bow. You will stand calm, and your silence will roar louder than the wind. That is your power. That is your legacy. And that is why the silence you choose today will echo for years to come. So, step forward with courage, with clarity, with peace. Know this: you are stronger than the insult, stronger than the betrayal, stronger than the noise. And when the next lesson comes, be ready, because silence will always be your greatest victory.